here to talk about a new novel, Arundel Haven, which I just finished a few months ago. And it's involving a romance between a teenage human Mordecai and a fairy maiden named Raven. Arundel Haven is the kingdom where Raven lives, which is ruled by Queen Cymbeline and her younger brother, Prince Arundel, who happen to believe in God and believe in Jesus Christ. And in the story, fairies are exactly like us, except for the fact that they have wings and can fly. And I was inspired by my love of Disney, particularly inspired by Tinkerbell, oddly enough. But I decided, what if fairies were human size? What would they be like in real life? I kind of pictured them with wings and nothing magical about them, but the fact that they can fly kind of sets them apart from humans. And Queen Cymbeline, in the story, Queen Cymbeline has forbidden the fairies from having contact with the human world because of what's in the heart of man, and the heart is deceitful above all things and is desperately wicked. And I've done my best to have Arundel Haven Disney worthy, well, with the exception of the strong Christian faith, the strong Christian influence in the novel. And I have the two rulers, the siblings, Queen Cymbeline and Prince Arundel, Bible-believing Christians. And she's forbidden the fairies from coming to the human world to keep them from learning the humans' ways, which is so corrupt. And there's so many things: lying, cheating, stealing, and so many abominable things, and murders and wars. But then again, but the fairies are not perfect either. They do have, and they mistrust humans for a reason, a good reason. Because if you want evidence, just look at the daily news. And one of the antagonists in the story is a world-famous geneticist, a world-renowned geneticist, Dr. Haman von Braun. That first kind of pattern after Malcolm McDowell, but later on, I kind of pictured him more on like Liam Neeson. Because either one of them would have been good at Dr. von Braun, because he had studied at Oxford University and he happened to have found an old book dealing with the fairy kingdom of Arundel Haven, and he took the book and he started to look for evidence of fairies. He started to have a fascination, but he pretty much kept it a secret until he has proof that fairies do exist. He kept that. He didn't reveal it, but he wanted to actually capture a real life fairy before he revealed that. And he is in close friendship with the president of the time, President Farouk, who's kind of anti-Christian. Well, it doesn't stay in the story, but President Farouk does his best to try to swerve around the Constitution, do things that are unconstitutional, and his blatant unsupport. Well, I don't know if I should put it, but blatantly is against Israel. And he has his agenda. I don't state what agendas he has in the novel, but I do state that President Farouk is anti-Israel, he's against the Constitution, and he has agendas which I do not mention in the story. that he pushes. And yes, President Farouk is kind of a mirror image of Barack Obama. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And there's also another antagonist, which is one of the main antagonists, is a dragon called Shadowfire, who have been afflicting the fairies of Arundel Haven for 150 years. And he wields great sorcerous power. He's a very powerful sorcerer in his own right, but he is a dragon. And he had been afflicting the fairies since the reign of King Zebulon. And out of it came the prophecy that his daughter, before she died, was Queen Hepzibah, which came to be known, very little known among the fairies, but clearly well known to Shadowfire. The prophecy of Queen Hepzibah, which states that a human would come to Arundel Haven and along with a fairy maiden be used by God to destroy Shadowfire. And Shadowfire fears this in his heart. And he appears to Mordecai in the dreams, though he doesn't know Mordecai's name, or he doesn't know where Mordecai lives, but somehow he knows who he is. And he visits him in his dreams, and he speaks of the prophecy, and Mordecai has no idea what Shadowfire is talking about. And he has it for about seven consecutive nights. He has that dream with Shadowfire. And then in one of the dreams, Mordecai starts calling him Shadowfire. The name Shadowfire comes to his mind, and he wonders if that's the name. And Mordecai Jefferson is the main character in the story, one of the two main characters, along with the fairy maiden Raven. And later on, but to give background on Mordecai, he is bullied in school. He suffers from depression. But there's no mention of suicide in this case in the novel, because I wanted to avoid that. But there's a little reflection in my life about it. But in the story, he has his younger sister Cece, who becomes supportive of him. Although at the beginning, the typical brother sister couldn't stand each other. I hate you, and all that stuff. But Cece comes to listen to Mordecai, and at the beginning of the novel, they become very close. And Cece has a fascination with fairies. She has a lot of fairy figurines in her room. She's so fascinated with fairies. She has a fairy wallpaper, screensaver. And in their younger days, Mordecai would ridicule. Before Mordecai got saved, Mordecai ridiculed Cece for believing in fairies, and their older brother, who's not in the story but he's mentioned, Randall, he chides Mordecai for making fun of Cece believing in fairies. And in the beginning of the story, Mordecai has a chance meeting. Not quite a meeting, but as he was going home, riding home on his bike, because he doesn't take the bus because he's being bullied. He's a victim of bullying. But he goes to the store to get a soda, and by chance, Dr. Von Braun and his men were picking up a beer and happened to accidentally overhear the conversation about Dr. Von Braun seeking fairies. And just after he leaves the store, they follow him, and Dr. Von Braun confronts him and mentions that he's seeking fairies, and he has a feeling that he was the key, that Mordecai was the key in finding the key to existence of fairies. And of course, later on, he would meet Raven, but before that, Dr. Von Braun would question him, would go to his school. His legit reason that he was asked to speak in some of the classes at Oak Ridge, and I intentionally had Oak Ridge, which I graduated from, as one of the scenes, since I attended Oak Ridge. But there are 3 bullies who play football who love to pick on Mordecai, as well as others, and they practically get away with it. His parents turn a blind eye, the teachers turn a blind eye, the principal turns a blind eye, because they're all state players. And I think they turn a blind eye because they're all state players and they don't want to lose them, have them suspended. And so they're allowed to keep bullying others like Mordecai, do such cruel things to him. They beat him up, they throw him in the dumpster. And it was later on that they had tied Mordecai up and taken him to the woods. And after Mordecai somehow got out of the ropes, that he meets Raven for the first time. And at first Raven was afraid, but she overcomes that fear, and they talk and they start seeing each other, and after 2 weeks they declare their love for each other. But her 2 friends, Lavender and Laurelyn, notice that Raven's been going to a particular spot in the human world, and they get onto her about that, and later on Queen Cymbeline finds out, and after Mordecai, at Raven's request, takes Raven to his home where he and his family lived, he introduces her to Cece and Cece's friends Sharon and written the book, I can't remember the name. Okay, Sharon and Tiffany. There we go. Sharon and Tiffany. Well, they meet Raven, but Raven revealed herself to be a fairy to Cece, to her delight. But it wasn't until Mordecai and Raven were found at Mordecai's home by Lavender, Laurelyn, and a few fairy soldiers, and Mordecai was taken to Arundel Haven. And at first, Queen Cymbeline imprisons Mordecai until she thinks about what his fate's going to be. And it was there he develops a friendship with one of the guards, and by chance, the niece of Raven, the 2-year-old niece of Raven, Twyla, comes into the castle again. And she had been there before when Raven was babysitting her. But this time her mother Starla was taking her home when she goes on to one of her adventurous flights and goes back into the castle and meets Mordecai for the first time, and she becomes immediately attached to Mordecai. And to me, Twyla kind of steals the whole story. And then you'll read why. Being lively and she accepts Mordecai immediately. And she asks why Mordecai doesn't have any wings. And Mordecai tells the toddler that he's human, not a fairy. But Twyla accepts him anyways. And in the story, God uses Twyla. To, and I can't get the words out, bear with me. And and changes the hearts of Twyla and even of Queen Cymbeline and Prince Avondale. And of course, Prince Avondale, at the time he visited Mordecai in the cell, Mordecai relays the dreams that he had of Shadowfire to Prince Avondale, and mentions some kind of prophecy he didn't know, and then somehow Prince Avondale remembers the prophecy of Queen Hephzibah, and so he leaves the cell and he finds out about the prophecy that of course a human and a fairy maiden would be used to destroy Shadowfire, and he reveals this to his older sister. And of course it's there that Queen Cymbeline tells the tale to him, and at that moment that her heart toward the human changed, and she had him released and been declared a guest, but she implores him. She doesn't force Mordecai to choose, even though that Mordecai knows in his heart that he was the one the prophecy is spoken of. But still, Queen Cymbeline gave him a choice, and she implores and begs of him, and though he was afraid, he agreed. And of course, he stays there at Arundel Haven a couple more days before returning. And before that, Queen Cymbeline gives Mordecai the gift of flight, and that Mordecai has the ability to fly. And so Mordecai goes home. He's reunited with his sister, and Tony and Molly, who are the parents of Mordecai and Cece, reject Raven because she's black, that she has black skin, and that their parents had grown up being against black people, but Molly's parents, who I later, briefly in the last chapter, become saved and they get rid of their prejudice, and they're accepting of all people because of what Jesus had done for them, that Jesus died for them. And so Tony and Molly have this prejudice toward people of color, but we're kind of shocked to see that there were fairies, that fairies did exist. And then Molly gets to know Raven and come to accept her. And then the hearts of Lavender and Laurelin kind of changed toward humans at that time, after getting to know Molly. And in the next chapter, the fairies are introduced to pizza, which Twyla becomes crazy about. Pizza. But after they leave Rossi's Pizza, Mordecai is captured and taken to. Mordecai is captured by Shadowfire and taken to his home in the Mountains of Shadow, because he feared the prophecy and he means to sacrifice Mordecai. And Raven went to rescue him. It was that time, and Starla returned to Arundel Haven with Cece, but she had been given the powers of flight temporarily by water from what the fairies call the Silver Streams, and then that allows him to fly. And so they went to Arundel Haven to tell the news to Queen Cymbeline. And I'm not going to reveal too much after that, but that's generally the storyline. The human Mordecai and the fairy maiden Raven meet and fall in love, but are the ones chosen by the prophecy of Queen Hephzibah to destroy the evil dragon Shadowfire, who had been afflicting the fairies of Arundel Haven for 150 years. And Dr. Von Braun's quest to find the fairy kingdom, because he's obsessed with finding evidence of the fairy kingdom of Arundel Haven, and of capturing a fairy and revealing the existence of fairies to the world. And I've written this story out of the love of Disney, and my fear is that the gospel of Jesus Christ will be categorized under fairy tales, and that's not my intention. It's to show my love for Disney, for one, and two, to show that we must have faith in Christ, and that no matter how bad the circumstances, God's going to get us through this. And that's why I'm still learning my current circumstance. But I pray that this fantasy story will used to be pleasing to God and to draw people to Christ. Though I've written it as a story of entertainment, but the Christian themes, the strong Christian themes, are very essential to the whole storyline.